Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, this is Debbie Potts doing a new episode of my Thursday edition of the Whole Athlete Podcast, where I call it Real Thoughts with Debbie Potts. Today I'm actually going to share real thoughts from my own viewpoint on life, on being fat adapted as an endurance athlete, triathlete, long distance events. We should be burning fat, right? We talk all about metabolic efficiency, how to train our body to burn fat at higher intensity levels, and to improve our ability to be metabolically flexible. So if we can burn carbohydrates as our last resort, and being fat adapted is what we should be, right? We should be automatically burning fat right now when we're sitting here listening to the podcast while you're going for a nice walk or doing a low heart rate bike ride. Make sure you're paying attention to the road though. And you might find yourself sitting here having the podcast being on in your house and you're doing other activities. All of these things we should be burning fat at rest. But because of what we have learned growing up is that we should be eating 3 times a day and a snack in between to keep our metabolism up, and to eat all these carbohydrates because we're going to bonk if we don't have these carbohydrates. Well, yeah, if you are a carb burner, but if you are burning fat for your main fuel, you should not feel like you need to eat 4 hours. You should be full. You should be able to go for a workout that's fasted, that you're not eating before you work out. You shouldn't feel like you have to eat first thing in the morning if your blood sugar is stable, if you are not having chronic stress. Because if your stress hormones are out of whack and dysfunctional HPA axis, we are going to be running from a lion all day long, causing that blood sugar to go up. So even if you are low carb, high fat, and have been fat adapted, and you train at that metabolically efficient rate that you're being at MAF heart rate, or staying below your metabolic crossover point where you stop burning as much fat and shift to more carb burning, all that's different when you start having chronic stress. So if you've read my book, Life is Not a Race, I shared my background, my red flags, my history growing up of what are my contributors to what we call in FDN practice, functional medicine, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. We call it metabolic chaos. And my metabolic chaos started way back when I was probably eating the typical standard American diet, high carb breakfast. I thought it was so clean and pure and healthy growing up in high school and college, and I was always dieting and following these different plans. And until I learned about the zone diet, I was doing the orange juice, banana, fat-free bagel and fat-free cream cheese for my morning. And the rest is history. If you read my book and listened to this podcast since 2011, starting with Fit, Fat, Fast podcast, I've shared all of this. But I think we always need to discuss again what metabolic efficiency is. What is fat adaptation? What is metabolic flexibility? And you'll hear in upcoming episodes on our Tuesday podcast edition, I've interviewed lots of people that I met on the keto low carb cruise that I spoke on with Jimmy Moore and my new keto family presenters there. We're all at KetoCon together, and they're really my new family, my friends that I just feel welcomed into this community. Not that I'm a strict keto person. I am working out a lot. So endurance athletes, as we'll talk about today and with Peter Defty, we can have a little bit more carbohydrates and still be showing ketones. So we'll talk about that on the show today, as well as future episodes talking about the keto diet for endurance athletes. And specifically, if you're doing Ironman, if you're doing trail running, you're doing long distance racing, cycling, running, we may be able to burn fat at higher rates, the way we train, the way we eat, but also that what Peter Defty talks about on one of his videos, that carb timing, and it's always almost like a performance enhancing drug. If you've been on a long bike ride, I've been doing a lot of Century bike rides this summer, and I can do a little more carbs if we stop at the bakery and have a gluten-free scone. I'll put my nut butter on it, fat bomb, and I can do that because this is like mile 80 and I have 20 miles. I go time trial, but I don't have to stop and have my coffee stop, but it's just been kind of a fun thing to do when we're almost done our bike ride on our way home and we stop for coffee, and then I am training at a race pace, short distance race, burning a lot more carbohydrates the last 20, 30 miles of my bike ride. So I can tolerate a little more carbohydrates and still be burning fat. And I think there's so much to talk about being a ketogenic athlete, being fat adapted, and what Peter Defty talks about, the optimal fat planning, like when to have carbohydrates and how you can be fat adapted, but you can add a little more carbohydrates once you've flipped that switch and you're adapted to fat burning. So if you listen to my past podcast with Kirsty Woods of the metabolichealthsolutions.org in New Zealand and Australia, she's an exercise physiologist, and we talked about what is metabolic flexibility, metabolic efficiency, what is fat adaptation. So go back and listen to the episode. It was really good. Plus, she's got a great accent. You got to love those New Zealand Kiwis and the Aussie accents. I love listening to them talk. Anyways, metabolic flexibility. What is it? Well, Kirsty, I had her write up her definition, and metabolic flexibility, she says, is the term used to describe the body's ability to switch between fuel sources based on their energy needs. Someone who is metabolically flexible can use fat as the primary and almost exclusive fuel when they are resting, sleeping, and moving around at a fairly slow pace. As they start to move around at a quicker, faster pace, as if you're running, that metabolically flexible athlete will be able to take advantage of extra fuel supplied by carbohydrates. And when they're nearly going flat out, as if a sprint, or as I just shared, a time trial on my bike ride to race to the finish line, which is my house, they will almost exclusively depend on carbs for fuel, but be able to switch back to burning fat. So I can add those carbs and time the carbohydrate dosage towards the end of a ride where I can just feel like it's rocket fuel when I put it in and just have an amazing race pace finish. So what does metabolically efficient athlete mean? Well, metabolic efficiency indicates ability for oxygen to flow readily into the mitochondria, those powerhouses of our cells, to produce energy. It has been linked with energy, aging, and athletic performance. Then we talk about what is fat adapted. What that means is when someone is fat adapted, they have developed the enzyme pathways, fat oxidation, and physiological changes to burn fat at rest and during exercise without compromising performance and well-being. So that gives you some great information on some terms that we discuss all the time. One thing I do want to add in on what we've talked about a lot, and you'll read about oxidative stress as you're exercising a lot more. As an athlete, we have a lot more oxidative stress being released with this long distance exercise or chronic cardio. Chronic exercise is what we tend to do when we're doing long distance training. So oxidative stress is an imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants in the body, which can lead to cell and tissue damage. Oxidative stress occurs naturally and plays a role in the aging process. So, if you want to speed up the aging process, keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to work on performance and longevity, we do want to work on getting more antioxidants in our body and ways we can help repair and recover our cells from the oxidative stress. So a large body of scientific evidence suggests that long-term oxidative stress contributes to the development in a range of chronic conditions such as cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. So talking about what stress is what we've done over the years. Acute stress versus chronic stress is a big thing I've been writing about in my blog. So if you head to debbiepotts.net, I've written lots of blogs on nutritional therapy, chronic stress, metabolic chaos, and everything I'm learning in the FDN practitioner program. But oxidative stress can occur when there's imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants in the body. So if we have anything imbalance, we're going to have dysfunction. So we talk all the time about the Goldilocks effect, I like to say. Not too much, not too little of anything is causing deficiencies or dysfunction. And we need to find the right balance between the two of a lot of areas to create homeostasis and balance in our body. Our body itself has its own innate intelligence, and if we keep doing anything too excessive, we cause dysfunction in our body. So we have to restore homeostasis in the body and get the body's innate intelligence to help support it so it can help the body stay in homeostasis, not have too much of anything or too little of anything. So several factors contribute to oxidative stress and excess free radical production. So the common things we always hear about: diet, what you're eating, your lifestyle habits, certain conditions and environmental factors of pollution and radiation, of course, exercise. But the body's natural immune response can also trigger oxidative stress temporarily. And there's different types of oxidative stress that cause mild inflammation that will go away after the immune system fights off the infection or repairs an injury. But if anything is too much, remember metabolic chaos. So if we have too much of anything, we cause disruption in the body's balance, its homeostasis. So if we are not able to keep oxidative stress the right amount in balance, in check, the immune system can fight things off. But anything, again, that becomes chronic is too overwhelming for one of the body parts to help, as insulin resistance is similar to that. Leptin resistance, we've got all these things become resistance to if there's too much of it. So I think of that when I read about this oxidative stress causes mild inflammation that goes away after the immune system fights it off. But what if that happens nonstop? Well, we've got inflammation that's out of control, cells that are damaged, and our immune system is out of whack. And then clinically correlate that together, as we do as FDN practitioners. We investigate the whole scene, the whole crime scene. And if our immune system and inflammation is out of whack, where does that start from? The immune system is primarily in the gut. Yes, the gut. So if we have gut dysfunction, chronic exercise, chronic stress, leading to all this overabundance of oxidative stress to our cells, creating inflammation that goes partially, maybe out of control. So how do you fix that? Well, in FDN, we don't fix one thing because obviously I just said all these different things that are causing inflammation and the immune system is out of whack. So we treat everything. So these are some articles I found. This is Medical News Today about oxidative stress. There's other ones I found as well, effects of oxidative stress in the body and how to reduce it. But again, it's a state of oxidative stress is a state that occurs when there's excess of free radicals in the body's cells, and the body produces free radicals during normal metabolic processes. Oxidative stress can damage cells, proteins, DNA, and they can contribute to aging, the aging word again. So I'm all about longevity, reversing the aging process. Hopefully you are as well, not just fixated on your race season and performance this year, but I'm all about what happens after that year of racing. So oxidative stress may play a role in development range of health conditions, as we talked about. So the body naturally produces antioxidants, right? So we hear about these antioxidants, but you can also buy supplements that are antioxidants to help reverse this process or keep the balance in check. So we want to counteract these free radicals. So what we eat is an important part, getting those antioxidants from our food. But I think a lot of us that exercise as much as we do for training for an Ironman or ultra run, bike ride, we have maybe the need for adding some supplementation on antioxidants a few times a week. So lifestyle changes, what we eat can help reduce oxidative stress. So what we eat is really important part of keeping that balance and your body weight, exercising regularly, but not too much. More is not better with exercise. Ideally 30, 45 minutes. But as we keep talking about, if you're training for an Ironman, how can we do Ironman training without blowing your body up and creating metabolic chaos? So we can start at least eating foods that are rich in antioxidants, perhaps supplementing. I can put a link in the show notes if I remember for Quicksilver. Scientific Labs, they have great liposomal drops that you can put under your tongue for 30 seconds and absorbs more in your body. So I've been using their supplements lately. So oxidative stress is something I think we need to talk more about. So I just wanted to bring that up as well as metabolic efficiency and what that means. And then we've got Peter Defty's information. So if you haven't heard of Peter Defty, he and I have a podcast coming up soon on the Tuesday show. But Peter and I met at Ben Greenfield's Superhuman Coach conference way back in 2013, I think. And this is when I was learning about all this stuff, 2012, from Ben's program I was taking with Stephanie Holbrook, and Brock was there. And really figured out a lot of this stuff that we were learning and talking about is what my body was doing, creating what we say in FDN, metabolic chaos. So Peter Defty talks a lot about strategic carbs, being fat adapted. What is the missing piece? He has a book that you can download for free called Beyond Keto. And I think it's really interesting. I think it's something we need to talk more about in our endurance world, because being fat adapted is a little different macronutrients than you'll hear majority of people that are doing keto, because people doing keto generally are not going out for a 100-mile bike ride and running 5 miles afterwards, and then the next day doing a 2-hour, 3-hour run. So I think we need to go into learning more the ketogenic diet and being fat adapted, but then let's change a little bit to how many carbs we can tolerate, not crappy carbs, garbage, but maybe you can add a little bit more. Maybe you don't need to. There's a lot of information. These people, my new friends, are all doing carnivore, and they're bodybuilders, and they're cardio people. Like Stephanie's doing Keto Endurance podcast, and she has her coaching program teaching people to do their carb timing as well. So Stephanie and I both met Peter Defty at the Superhuman Coach program. She did work with him some time, and I'm doing some podcasts, and we're going to do a webinar in the fall, winter this year. But let's go into OFM, what he talks about. So if you go to his website, ofm.io, he's got his blog and video blogs. They're called vlogs. And it's called Optimized Fat Metabolism. So I would go read about OFM's story and what is fat adaptation. I think it's a great thing to go over for endurance athletes. So what he says is something we'll talk more about upcoming podcasts, but we didn't get enough time to talk about everything. So let's go over what he says here. For most of us know what performance fat adaptation is not. It's not about eating high fat macros and really low carb macros and moderate protein. In fact, it's not about macros at all, but eating real food in the proportion, limiting and balancing to mimic nature. He also says consuming a bunch of MCT oil, coconut oil, nut butters, fat bombs, exogenous ketones are not what performance fat adaptation is about. Nor is it about chasing your data, chasing ketones, blood sugar, insulin levels, because they will be different for exercising a lot. You'll notice that if you test your ketones and blood sugar levels before and after workouts. It is not about constantly hacking yourself. What Peter Defty talks about in OFM allows you to be yourself. And what I talk a lot about is why I like what he says is your innate intelligence. Is using your own intuition to pay attention to your body to figure out how to fuel yourself and how to manage staying fat adapted and then how to fuel for workouts. Now, I must say that I do most of my workouts fasted. If you count coffee with a little heavy cream as fasted. So it's not a total fast. That would just mean I drink water. But I do like my coffee. I do the Keon coffee that Ben Greenfield's company makes. I get it. Just got it today in the mail. I love that coffee. And I also love Stumptown. What's the coffee? Holler. Just got Stumptown coffee. I love that one as well. Anyways, organic coffee with some heavy cream. That's what I like to do in the morning. I do my morning workouts weekdays fasted. Wednesday, today I'm recording this, I do more of a longer fast, about 24 hours, because if you stop eating dinner before 5 o'clock or have your main meal as lunch for us, I don't have kids or family to feed, just my husband and I. So we can go 5 o'clock p.m., say Tuesday, and I did not eat until I got home today at 4:30. That is my day. I do more of a longer fast. And because I've been fat adapted and doing this for, 10 years or so, I can lift weights in the morning. And I did treadmill sprints today. Wednesday are my sprint days. And lifted heavy weights in between, like 5 reps, 5 rounds of a couple exercises. Then I had personal training clients. And then I walked with a client at 10:30, doing 1 minute run, 1 minute walk at his pace. And then I did master swimming, which is a little late. So I only got about 45 minutes of our class. It's 12 to 1 p.m. And then I had clients at 2 to 3:30, then stopped at the grocery store and didn't get home till 4:30. Then I ate. Did I feel hungry? No. I drank some water when I started to feel hungry this afternoon because I knew I was more dehydrated than hungry, and then add some sea salt in there. So when you're fat adapted, you can do this. It doesn't happen if you went from a high carb and you tend to eat a lot during the day. It doesn't happen that quickly. I've been doing this for years, but I purposely do a longer fast on Wednesdays because my work schedule allows me to do that because I'm not at home. I'm not at work with food, and it's easier to just go through the day and just wait till I get home to eat. And I found I can't eat and go for a bike ride. I've been doing that Tuesday, Thursdays. I get home at 11:30 and I tend to eat my meal then go bike riding. But I can't do that anymore. I don't know why I have been doing it. It's just easier. But I have food sitting in my belly and I can't do that and go for a bike ride, even if I'm low heart rate. It just sits there. It's not very comfortable. So fasted workouts, much easier. And you don't have to think about what you're eating. So if you can just train yourself to be fasted, my 30-day online coaching program starts for athletes in October. In November, December, January, I want to do more of an ongoing program with athletes as a group to help them flip that switch and be fat adapted, because there's some things I do: intermittent fasting, time restricted eating, 1 meal a day, some bone broth fasting, getting more protein, and working on the other elements of the holistic method, including sleep and sleep hygiene and relaxation and meditation and whatnot we can do. So going back to optimized fat metabolism with Peter Defty, he's a great article about what is fat adaptation that I was just reading from. But think about some main points here. Chasing ketones is not the key if you're an athlete. According to him, fat adaptation is not about mega ketones levels in the blood. And if you follow some of the ketone people in the industry on Instagram recently, we're doing a 5-day test showing their ketones and when they work out, and it isn't as high. So you have to just show that, like Amy Berger in a past episode we did, if you just show 0.1, 0.2, you're showing ketones, so it's okay. So don't be fixated on trying to get 3.0 on your ketone meter. It's not about what's in your blood, Peter says, but it's what your body can metabolize as energy. So this is why the trend they see in the OFM athletes is that they're fat adapted, and they can still run subclinical ketone levels, but their bodies prefer to metabolize ketones for energy over glucose and reserve the glucose for the high intensity work. Does that make sense? So when the athletes are training, as I said on my bike ride, I can focus on burning fat and metabolizing ketones for energy and sparing that muscle glycogen so when I need it, when I do my time trial on the way home. OFM athletes are able to perform multiple hour training sessions on barely any calories because they're burning fat through beta oxidation, ketosis, and even gluconeogenesis, which means making glucose from your protein, while they conserve their glycogen. So you might notice when you're doing your long bike rides, I listen and read all these blogs on the Facebook, fat adapted athletes, low carb athletes, keto endurance athletes. There's so many different groups now, which is amazing. It's so exciting to see what's evolved in the last 10 years. But, people are trying to eat all this fat or eat the slow carb, you can drinks and whatnot. But a lot of times you should still be having water when you're only doing but for endurance world, doing a 1 to 3 hour bike ride. You probably don't need anything. So don't worry about just having water and some sea salt. Take that stuff. Like I'll take an F-bomb, and I like the Primal Kitchen macadamia nut bars, and I'll put those in my backpack on a long ride on the weekend, but I really don't need it until about 3 hours. But if I'm going weekday rides, I don't need to take anything. I just have 2 bottles, 1 bottle of water, depending on my length, and I'll go 2-hour ride. Once in a while, maybe I'll have time to go a little longer, but I don't need anything. So finding the balance between how many carbs you can tolerate and being fat adapted, as a great article he has as well, is that the greater your carbohydrate tolerance is, the more you can use those carbs in your performance. So they're like that, he says, turbo booster, I say rocket fuel, when you're using them correctly. So that's carb timing, when to take those carbohydrates at the end of the workout, or when you're going to go in an Ironman or triathlon of any level, you have to go run after you get off the bike. So you don't get to be finished off the bike ride. You still have a marathon to run. So you need some extra fuel source. Maybe you don't need a lot of carbohydrates. Some people might need more. But I think a lot of it depends on how you are training. So if you're training at your MAF heart rate, which is max aerobic function, which unless you metabolically efficiency, treadmill and bike testing, you can use the 180 minus your age plus or minus 5 beats that Maffetone figured out years ago. And figure out where you're staying there below. Say I try to stay 130 heart rate for my bike rides until the very end. When I do my higher heart rate finish, the last hour or more, 2 hours max, I'll do my high heart rate work. And then during the weekdays, make sure you add some interval training, do that HIIT training, as we'll learn more from Paul Larson. So it's figuring out that you are unique, not one size fits all approach here. We have our own intuition that we need to figure out how to use, pay attention to your body, finding the right balance between a high carb and keto world. Well, you don't need to have high carbs during the week. Maybe you can add some carbs in those long workouts, but maybe you don't. Maybe you can still burn fat and be fasted most of your workout. But then you might notice that if you have a little something, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to go into carb world and be stuck there again, right? So you have to learn what your body needs and about your ability to be fat adaptated might take months, might take 6 months, might take a year, might take 2 weeks. It depends on you and how long you've been a carb addict and eating way too many carbohydrates than your body needs and not burning your fat fuel stores at all. Really. I mean, we burn some, but I think most people burn primarily carbs if you were following what we were raised to do, eat a high carb diet and avoid fats and not eat protein as myself. So Peter's got great articles. The one I would say to start with is What is Fat Adaptation? And then the next one I found that was pretty good for the next level is article on the best diet for performance and health, keto or high carb. That it's confusing being keto, that some keto fat adapted athletes can go low carb, but the amount that you have per day could vary. So some people can tolerate a lot more carbs than another, as I said. So check out OFM.io and get the OFM story and the OFM pyramid and how you work on that fat adaptation process. But it's that strategic carbohydrates he talks about. He works for selling Vespa, so Vespa something works for him and his coaching clients. Hydration, training, and your lifestyle habits, as I talk about in the holistic method. Your stomach and gut health. So stomach to me means your organ, and your stomach acid is usually something I need to supplement with as a nutritional therapist. And FDN, we can tell a lot about if you're breaking down your protein, your food properly, starting in your stomach, the organ, not your stomach. Just think of everything as your stomach. And then gut health is super essential, as well as Peter says on his OFM pyramid, that gut health is huge. And that's what I'm doing more with athletes this fall, winter, as I close my fitness studio and start coaching you guys on my website. I'll be doing group training and then the individual training using the FDN practitioner work and nutritional therapy skills and genetic analysis using your genetic raw data you can upload into DNA Fit. So you can do Ancestry DNA and upload it there, and looking at lifestyle habits and your addiction to busyness, your overtraining, under recovering, chronic stressors that are external, but what we learn in FDN and what I'll be doing, and I'll talk about it next week on the podcast, are functional labs. And using our medical director program, I can order these labs and have them interpret them. And then I will take that data and recommendations from the medical director and help you create the lifestyle habits and supplements and sleep and stress and exercise and your nutrition plan based on all this amazing information. We can clinically correlate and then create a program for you to follow based on all these recommendations they'll give you. So I love the OFM program. It really overlaps with what I do in the Holistic Method program. Talking about eating real food, not counting calories, just working on your nutrition. And, I don't like counting calories. I dieted way too much growing up. And for me to count my macros, I can't do, and I can't write down my food, but I will have you do that in our 30-day program because we don't know what we're eating unless we write it down and enter it in a Chronometer or MyFitnessPal or different programs that Paul Larson was talking about. I have to look up. But there's different ways to do it. But I think testing your blood sugar, we'll use Keto Mojo in my coaching programs using ketone measurements and your blood sugar measurements and tracking what we're eating. Really, I think if you show you're balancing your blood sugar and showing some ketones, we know that we're getting you the right fuel to keep you balanced in your blood sugar. But then also we can use your Training Peaks data from your Garmin and see if you're getting faster. And you put it all together for an athlete, right? We can use that data we get typically from your Garmin and import it into Training Peaks and then clinically correlate that performance part of it from your workouts to your nutrition. And 75% of being metabolically efficient and fat adapted is coming from nutrition. The rest of it is exercise, but I think there's a percentage that no one said about is how much is impacted by chronic stress. And that's my focus, is how to cut down or eliminate chronic stress from outside and eliminate the internal stressors that are hidden. We don't know about those hidden stressors unless we do lab testing. So what we'll do in the FDN practitioner program that I will be offering as soon as possible are the 5 different labs that we don't treat one lab result. We put everything together, as you said, and clinically correlate the results all together with your lifestyle and genetics. So the labs will help us identify those hidden internal stressors. Hidden stands for H, hormones, I, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy systems, your cells, and your nervous system, your neurotransmitters. So stay tuned. I've got a ton of information I'm writing on my blogs, and there's like 3 or 4 ebooks you can download for free on my website, debbiepots.net, and stay tuned. We've got lots of fat adaptation, keto, carnivore podcasts coming up this next few months. Being fat adapted and a metabolic state that we can get you to. Read more on the OFM website, read more on my website, and hopefully Paul Larson and I can help you more. If you're in Kona this year, you for sure need to attend my event that I'm hosting, and it'll be somewhat of a seminar, but we're going to mostly mingle and talk. Paul Larson will talk a little bit about what is fat adaptation. I'll talk about how chronic stress impacts the whole athlete. And we have a drawing. We've got some prizes that somehow I have to get over to Hawaii. And then we've got swag bags for the first 50 people that come join us. So we've got Keon. I got amino acids from them. I have Peely Nut Butters. They're donating a bunch of samples. And I have some Vespa for a raffle drawing. I've got Keto Mojo testing kit for a raffle. I have swag bags from Keto Mojo, some nice little backpacks, and all sorts of stuff. Oh, natural recovery greens. They gave me a bunch of samples and more. And I got cool bracelets, rubber bracelets that says a fat adapted athlete to hand out for everyone that comes, and then I can have them color coded to find out who was the first 50 people to attend. So that will be at the old Bubba Gump's store that is closed. Sadly, poor Bubba finally closed down in Kona. But it'll be Bikeworks and Garmin's, their pop-up shop they have every year down on Alihi Drive on the Wednesday. If you go to eventbrite.com, you can find the Fat Adapted Low Carb Athlete Meetup. And it'll be on the Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, 4 to 6 p.m. If it goes well, I think I'll talk to Grant from Bikeworks. He's the owner, to do one for Lava Man. April 5th is that race. And then Hanu 70.3 race. I will be doing both of those races and helping out over there. So please join us. And I think you'll really have fun if you can come to Kona. I love to go, even though I haven't raced since 2012. But I started going there, watching the race in 2001. It is a part of me. I raced it 5 times starting in 2004, and I hope to maybe I hope to return there again as I hopefully do another race again next year. So keep in touch. Please reach out. We've got the Low Carb Athlete page on Facebook and Instagram that I put most of the research links I've been finding. And then we've got the Whole Athlete podcast page where you can post questions. And then my website is where everything is going to now, debbiepots.net. So I hope to see you soon. Stay tuned. There's more information coming out on my 30-day total transformation fat adapted athlete online coaching program, plus my individual coaching programs coming up to heal and rebuild the whole athlete, as well as a free webinar I'm having end of October 30th, about all of this. So that's coming up. Everything's going to be on the website, the different landing pages. So lots to keep up with. My assistant's probably overwhelmed, and I've got so much going on in my head as I go for my bike rides. I think of all these ideas I want to do, and one of the big, hairy, audacious goals was to do this seminar meetup in Kona. So that's my first big, hairy, audacious goal that I'm actually following up with. So spread the word, share the podcast, please, with others, and let's help grow this on my new journey as I close my Fitness Forward studio October 1st. And this is my full-time job, doing coaching online and helping spread the word about how to not be a broken athlete, how to build the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Talk to you soon, guys. Please reach out and let me know your questions. Have an amazing day.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.